prayer and the pledge. Our
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number C, approval of minutes. In the absence of any objections or corrections, the minutes shall stand approved from the October 5th regular meeting. Citizen communication. Anybody out there who have something they need to share that is not on the agenda? Okay. Move on to letter E, reports from council committees. Electric committee, Mrs. Sinclair.
We just approved the PSCAF for October 2020.
Okay.
Had some discussion on substations.
Okay, thank you. Water, sewer, refuge, recycle, and water committee for October 12th was canceled. Municipal Properties, Building, Land Use, and Economic Development Committee did not meet on October 12th due to lack of agenda items. Parks and Recreation Committee, Mr. Hayes.
We had discussion on the rates and fees for Napoleon Aquatic Center and also the corporate fees for the Aquatic Center.
Okay. Moving on to letter G, introduction of new ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 052-20, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an annexation agreement with William R. Myers for the annexation of 3.038 acres of land, more or less. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. This is to allow the city to enter, or at least the city to annex a piece of property that is adjacent to, I can pull up the map here. Let me zoom out for a second. And I can put this on the county GIS. Move it. Almost there. So as you get out south of the city limits, there is a property that is owned by Mr. Bill Myers that he would like to annex in. This is part of it here. That is not part of it. So this parcel right here. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
So just right around where it appears that County Road 15C comes in, which is also part of Wayne Park Drive. The south side of it where it intersects with West Riverview. Just wanted to thank Billy for taking the bull by the horns and putting together the agreement, the annexation agreement. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. He'd like to, I think he was here at the last council meeting, he'd like to sell the lot for residential development.
Any questions?
Sewers. What are we gonna do about sewers out there? Because I don't think there is any out there, is there?
There aren't any. And what he is going to do and what he is contracting to do is put in a pump station for himself, a small residential pump station, and run the lines up over to where it would connect inside the corporation limits
Okay,
at his expense.
fine. Happy to hear that.
Any other questions, comments? Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, that moves on to second read. Item number 2, Ordinance number 053-20, an ordinance to amend Chapter 194 successfully, or specifically Section 194.081, credit for tax paid, City of Napoleon, of codified ordinances of the City of Napoleon regarding municipal income tax, amending ordinance number 053-15, and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. And I'm not going to rehash everything that we've already talked about again. I just wanted to emphasize the point that the reason why we're here is because we've seen reductions in our local government funds that we get from the state over the past several years. And we've also experienced changes to the federal tax codes that led to a large decrease in our income tax revenue. So, just pointing out the newer proposal was to, the original proposal was 50%, and the latest proposal was to reduce that to 30% of what somebody would pay. So really reducing it to a 70% credit, and that's what, if you don't mind here, I'll pull up the resolution here. Everybody has it in front of them. Multitasking, so this would be the change right here, reducing the 100% credit to a 70% credit. That's really all I had to, just wanted to emphasize that point and take any questions.
Okay, questions? Council members?
I appreciate the clarification, because that's the question that I've been asked the most is why do we suddenly need money, or, have we not planned for the possibility of more personnel or whatever? So, thank you.
Yep.
Joel, how much was that tax decrease each year that we'd be receiving?
Well, the 20, I believe when this came, you're talking about the federal tax code change
Yes,
that
yes,
led
sorry.
to the large income tax refund. The last year that we had projected was $311,000 is what we didn't receive. That coupled with the local government fund reductions, led to where we're at.
Okay.
Since 2008, we have not received approximately $1.9 million in local government funds, to give you kind of an idea. So,
Thank you.
I'll go back to, I guess, my concern that I expressed last council meeting. I worry that a 70% credit, we might have to dip into this well again down the road. I think we've ran into a few instances just in my short time being on council where we've had to make adjustments based off of prior leadership, that we don't want to be in that position. And we've had to fix something that may have been halfway done previously. I think if we're gonna make this change, let's make the change and not have to go back and ask the citizens for more. If we did a 50% tax credit, not only would it allow for staffing, but to have some for the roads, I think is vitally important, the infrastructure piece. So just my 2 cents.
Okay.
we've had 2 levies for road repair, and they've been turned down by the voters at a very small turnout to vote in the beginning. With only 19% of the voters eligible showing up to vote, and only 8% of them voting in favor of fixing the roads. I think we can ignore that for a while. Then how do we fix the roads? That comes, we work on that separately. But there's no solution for it. I mean, if we do 50, we have some left, and they talked about, I think the projections were for basically a rookie
a rookie firefighter and a rookie EMT, part-time. With municipalities around us cutting force, we may get somebody who has some experience. If we go 50, it gives us some leeway. If we're gonna do it, I don't wanna come back in 2 years and go, we need 35, or we need 40.
Any other comments? Any comments from anybody out there? Oh,
I would. Can I chime in?
sure.
So it appears that there is at least one person who thinks that this legislation ought to be amended. If there are more, there could certainly be a vote as to making that amendment. I would ask that that vote be taken first, and if that vote were to pass, then we could vote on the legislation as amended. Council rules state that if this were a third read, we'd go back to a second read. But being this a first read, you could make that amendment, have that pass, and then pass the amended legislation on first read. It would go to second read with that change. So if that's what anybody wants to do, I just wanted to make sure that the rules are clear and that if we're taking a vote, that those votes are clear as well.
Okay. Thank you, Billy. Do we have a motion then to amend the ordinance as stated?
My proposal would be we give 50% a look. I think we all know cost of business is increasing as time progresses. I think to better prepare the citizens, if we could look at a step-in approach, maybe 25% the first year, so 75% tax credit the first year, and then 50% tax credit the second year. That would be what I would recommend or propose at least. So yes, I'll make the motion to amend the legislation. Billy, I don't know the exact verbiage that we need here.
Okay, so I don't, if you're if you're going to ask that, I guess the credit be 75% for the first year, with the change thereafter to 50% for the following year, we could certainly make that amendment as to the legislation if that's the motion you want to make. If you want to make the motion to have it go directly to 50%, we can do that. You can do that too, and then take a vote on that.
Okay, I'll make the motion for a phased-in approach, 75% the first year, 50% the second year.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Motion dies for lack of a second.
Okay, so I guess that motion dies. Then do I go on?
Yeah.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll on the motion ordinance 053-20.
Dan,
Yes?
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, that moves on to second reading. Second readings. Ordinance number 043-20, an ordinance accepting the the dedication of a section of Claremont Avenue between Briarheath Avenue and Westmoreland Avenue as a public street pursuant to ORC Section 723.03. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Joel?
Thank you. Nothing new to add on this. This is just the dedication for Claremont Avenue, the section in front of the high school.
Any additional comments? Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes?
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay. H2, resolution number 044-20, a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew a contract with Wheeler Waste Control and Recycling, INC, without the necessity of public bidding and declaring an emergency. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Joel?
Again, thank you. Nothing new to add to this either. This is just a one-year extension to the contract with Whirlwick Waste Control, and this is for the recycling drop-off that we have with us.
Has anybody voiced any kind of concerns about this?
No,
Okay,
not that I'm aware of.
right, yep.
I haven't heard a thing.
I haven't heard a thing either. I'm just
Nope.
making sure.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, we go on to, oh boy.
Let me take a drink, Dan.
Is Mr. Council President online somewhere? Ordinance number 048-20, an ordinance authorizing the insurance of revenue bonds from time to time for the purpose of paying the cost of improving the city's municipal water system or refunding debt issued by the city for the purpose of authorizing the execution and delivery of a master trust agreement providing for the rights of the holders of the board and pledging certain revenues and funds to secure those bonds and declaring it an emergency. Kelly?
Motion.
No, motion?
I'll motion.
1 second, Kelly.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything new to add other than Joel and I are finishing the preliminary official statements, and the rating agency call has been moved to November 12th. And just a reminder, the sewer will close in January of 2021. Thank you.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, ordinance number 049-20, an ordinance providing for the issuance of sale of water system refunding revenue bonds, Series 2020, under Article 1518 of the Ohio Constitution in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $3,165,000 for the purpose of paying the cost of refunding certain outstanding obligations herefore issued by the city to improve the utility authorizing various related documents and instruments, including a bond purchase agreement, a first supplemental trust agreement, an escrow agreement, and an official statement, and declaring an emergency. Motion?
So move.
Second.
Kelly?
Thank you. Nothing new to add on this one. It's just the second piece of legislation for the water bond refunding. Thanks.
Any other comments? Mr. Mayor?
No.
Thank you. Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 050-20, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds from time to time for the purpose of paying the cost of improving the city's municipal sewer system or refunding debt issued by the city for that purpose, and authorizing the execution and delivery of a master trust agreement providing for the rights of the holders of the bonds and pledging certain revenues and funds to secure those bonds and declaring an emergency. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Kelly?
Thank you. Again, nothing new to add other than we'll keep you guys posted on the amounts that will go to the refunding bonds as we get closer to closing. Thank you.
Okay. Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 051-20, an ordinance providing for the insurance of sale of sewer system refunding revenue bonds, Series 2021, under Article 18 of the Ohio Constitution in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $5,140,000 for the purpose of paying the cost of refunding certain outstanding obligations herefore issued by the city to improve the utility, authorizing various related documents and instruments, including a bond purchase agreement, a first supplemental trust agreement, an escrow agreement, and an official statement and declaring an emergency. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, can you reread that? I'm sorry, was that?
Kelly?
Good thing he has a mask on.
I have nothing new to add. Thank you.
Taking my health into my own rescue by sitting this close to you and
And
saying that.
the EMTs have got tired of me reading these motions, so they're all departing.
I think they're getting the cot ready for me, because I get beat down here a little bit.
Okay, excuse me, folks. Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Dan,
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, this is a little easier. Third reading of ordinances and resolutions. Resolution number 042-20, a resolution appointing Mayor Jason Mazel and myself to represent the city of Napoleon as members of the Board of Directors of the Community Improvement Corporation of Henry County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Motion.
Second.
Anything?
Nothing new to add. Haven't heard any complaints, so.
Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, that passes on third reading. Good of the city. Discussion action, number 1, discussion action, power supply cost adjustment factor for October 2020 and a 3-month average factor of 0.00731 and JV2 0.016902.
Under our screens.
There it is.
We're blank over here.
Still?
Hey, there we
Nope.
go.
Is
Oh.
it on?
It is.
was.
It was on, and
Oh,
as it came on, I turned it off. I did.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay.
Okay, where was I? Joel?
Power supply cost adjustment factor,
Yes.
good low month this month, so, I'm hoping that we can, get going into next year, when the rates go down, and they will go down after the Morgan Stanley contract comes off. That's our purchase power contract, and when that comes off, we should see more, months like this steady, going out into, perpetuity.
Does that happen at the beginning of the year, or?
It's at the beginning of the year, so actually it'll be the March billing cycle. So in people's March bills, they'll see that reduction. So just seeking approval.
Motion to approve?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, J2, discussion action, Twin Oaks subdivision, 7th edition construction. That was tabled. Do I have a motion to untable?
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll on untabling.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay,
And once again, because I live in the neighborhood, I'm gonna recluse myself from this conversation.
okay, understand, Mr. Mayor. Joel?
Thank you. We have a request here, from a developer. Let me make sure I get it right. I think it's SAS Group. And, to approve of sorry, I skipped ahead a little bit, trying to, when it's zoomed in like this. Here it is. To approve of the preliminary plat for, this, section of Sedward, which is an addition to Twin Oaks. Let me just pull up on the GIS aerial photo. It's a little slow here. Pardon me. There we go. And basically, you can see, let me zoom in just a couple screens here. There we go. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Let's zoom out one. Is that better? That way you can see Joliet. So basically, this would, this approval of this plat would be the approval of the extension of Sedward to the, this is what this white dotted line here, dashed line here, is the city limits. But the developer is proposing to construct Sedward to the edge of the, right to the property line, and connect Joliet, which is also in the old preliminary plat approval. We also went through the, not only did we go through this plat, but we also went over the restrictions for Twin Oaks subdivision. At the last council meeting, Mr. Greg Beck was here, and he's here today, stated that, you know, kind of gave some of the history of why the roads were built in concrete. We don't have anything in any of these documents or anything on the books right now that states that the road must be or shall be constructed in concrete. All we have is that road construction has to be to our engineering specs. So the request from Mr. Beck is to, for the approval of the preliminary plat, but with using asphalt instead of concrete for the construction of the road. So that's what's before everybody. And Mr. Beck, if you wanted to say a few words, or if anybody has questions for Mr. Beck, myself, or any staff.
Yes, what we'd like to do is get the preliminary plat passed so we can do our construction, and sometime in April, we'll come back to you for a final plat.
How much savings do you expect?
I'm being told 40% difference between blacktop and concrete right now. It's kind of crazy. In 08, it was the opposite, about the exact opposite. So,
I failed to mention this too, I don't remember if we brought this up last time, but there is something in here where the city requires that Sedward specifically be 80 feet wide right away instead of the 60 feet, or the roadway.
the roadway's 33 feet, I think.
The roadway's 33 feet, so it's the width is increased, but that's by the city's direction from the history of it. We'd like to keep it that way too, but the city is on the hook for that additional cost to widen the road.
To go from 28 to 33, the city would pick that up.
So estimated cost right now, I believe, is $25,000. That'll be reflected in the 2021 budget.
That sounds right.
What would be the specs for the road as far as depth, base and sub-base?
Chad has that as 14 on the on the stone, and 8 on, or hold it, 8 on the pavement.
It's decent.
6 on the pavement. 6 and 14.
Is it 6 and 4? Okay.
Yeah, that's still decent,
Yeah, that's a little different what they built them in the 70s.
yes.
With this extension, do we know how many more residential lots there will be available?
11 at this time.
Awesome.
Of course, we have 2 pre-sold if we go through with this, and we have a guy looking at maybe possibly 2 more, buy 2 and build 1 house on the middle of it.
So this is it right here. I know it's kind of hard to see because of all the different elevation lines and utility markings, but there's 1, I guess, east of Joliet, and then 5 west of Joliet on the north side, and then 5 on the south side of Sedward. But you'd mentioned that to see lot number 96, 95 and 96 look a little wider.
They were modified for the people wanting to buy them, they wanted them bigger.
Am I right that Chad said that the existing streets will need to be redone? And there's no intention to keep them concrete anymore?
You know, that's a tough question to answer right now, because to redo everything and pull everything out is, I believe, is at least in current prices, cost prohibitive. So, I grew up on a concrete street in Waterville, and there are a lot of things that you can do to, spot repair. I think what Chad said that he's been doing is pulling out a section at a time, because the way it's poured, you can pull out just one whole square section, and then put in a new square section and replace it that way. So,
But if that was the case and you had to replace some of that street today, when they did the pricing, believe me, it would be a whole lot more to go concrete versus blacktop. I couldn't see the city doing that, just to be blacktop over concrete or vice versa, because a road's a road. You know, if you pave it in gold, is it gonna make it right any better?
I agree. But I did talk with two residents, and, they weren't adamant that they didn't want it, but they weren't really in favor of it changing. But my understanding from that last meeting was that it would eventually all be asphalt anyway. I just don't know if it makes a difference.
I guess that would be a discussion for council at the time to, when that would come up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you go 8 years from now, it might reverse again, who knows? I mean, you just don't know what prices are gonna really do. Maybe oil will get so cheap that they'll do it for almost nothing, who knows?
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks.
And what do you need then, Mr. City Manager? Just a motion?
It's just up for council approval, if they want to.
Motion to approve, okay.
But with the understanding, just so we're all clear, that what he's requesting is to do this in asphalt. And if it's done in asphalt, the expectation is that this road will be dedicated then to the city once completed, as long as it's done through the engineering standards that are adopted by council.
Good idea.
Motion to accept?
Yes?
Second.
Okay, you got that? Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes?
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, discussion action, item number 3, behind meter generation.
Thank you. Thank you again. If I could, I'd like to close out a couple of these things and then, we talked, it has behind the meter generation. I think what we wanted to cover is a little bit of an update on the condition and plan projected right now to move forward with our substations. And years ago, we never had the opportunity to have a partnership with AMP in any way with regard to our transmission system. Almost by, the short history of this is that by default, AMP transmission was formed at the, I'll put it nicely, a request. Not a demand, it was a request for members that were under a regulatory pinch, really, and we were one of them, to form a transmission entity so that they could help us not have to register as transmission owners or sell our assets to First Energy, the incumbent IOU, which a couple of communities actually did. But that was before AMP transmission was formed. So since then, a lot has been learned from the model that has been set up by AMP transmission. And part of it is, what do we do with our older assets, namely our substations that are the most expensive pieces and parts of this system as individual components. So, we put together some cost estimates of what it would take to rebuild those, the old substations, which are in their 40s. Their end of life is around, between 40 and 50 years typically. yeah, you see some that run a little longer, but, you know, you're rolling the dice. So we had a plan to kind of start the engineering and, you know, expend funds, and it amounted to about roughly $10 million, were our estimates. So, but with the how AMP transmission operates is they, what we've requested them to do is take a look at the assets that we have in question here. I have it up on the screen. But basically, our plan was to rebuild the substations in sequence. So we'd start with industrial, then go to Southside, then Glenwood. And all of that cost would be borne on the ratepayers of the system. By working with and partnering with AMP Transmission, the assets can transfer to AMP Transmission, kind of like how we did with the Northside substation already. And they can integrate those transmission assets, and then they would pay for all of the upgrades. Not only that, but we would actually get paid for that transfer of assets over to them. So when we talked about this in the Electric Committee and Board of Public Affairs at length, several months, maybe a year, you know, we've been on this path of trying to decide what would be best for the community, for the electric system, and for the community. And I think that right now, where it stands, I believe everybody is on board with moving forward with you know, partnering again with AMP Transmission, but at this time taking on more assets. I'm going to start with the remainder of the Northside substation. So what we're looking at is, if you look at, you know, where the Northside substation is, and the 69 kV line comes down and connects with the industrial substation right off of Enterprise Drive. And we have that's kind of the first phase of what we're looking at in doing. So that would mean, though, transferring the remainder of Northside substation, the 69 kV facilities in between, and then the industrial substation. So how do you come up with a number? So the number that is proposed is actually put together by a third party using called a Handy Whitman model, which is basically they look at the asset, they estimate the cost of what it would construct it today, and then they factor in the depreciation of when it was built using today's dollars. So essentially what they came up with is, it's really, in engineers, there's really not much wiggle room on this. There's not a lot of haggling that goes on. But when we looked at the valuations, starting with the remainder of Northside substation, the net book value is at $1.5 million. When you look at the 69 kV line in between, you know, those are all pretty relatively new poles and lines and everything. So they valued pretty high because they were, you know, constructed in relatively recent years. So 2.3 million. And then the industrial substation at 1.9 million, actually, which was a little bit of a surprise to me that it came in. But when you look at the detail sheets, you can see where some of these facilities, the date of when they were installed, installation date, and you got a lot of 2012s in there, some of the components, some of them 1974, you know, it just depends, and we keep really, our group keeps really good records of the equipment, installation, you know, the ages of them, so it's really been helpful. So that's a lot of the reason why for the discrepancies in valuations. And the components are different, so, but overall, I'd say that, you know, looking at about a, you know, $5.7 million transfer is what the electric fund would take in. Now, there would be expenses on our part because there are certain components at the industrial substation that aren't considered transmission related, they'd be distribution related, so we would be on the hook for making those upgrades. We're estimating now that those components upgrades would be in the range of 1.5 to 1.7 million. And, but we knew that kind of going into this. So, at the end of the day though, what it comes down to is, I guess the philosophy is, what's best for the ratepayers? And keeping the rates low, transferring assets to an entity that we're part owner of, you know, makes a little sense. You know, we control our costs a little better. So, I guess these are the discussions that have been had. The last piece that's on here is, you know, behind the meter generation. There is a hurdle that we have to jump through, and that is to make sure that the generation that we have behind our meter, all of the gas turbines, diesel engines, and the solar field all remain behind the meter. In other words, they can't have a direct link to our 69 kV system. That would be transferred in transmission. So there's a way to engineer that out. It'll likely be a cost on our part, but we haven't gotten to that point yet to figure out how that's going to be separated out and then run into the transmission system. So that is a little bit of a hurdle, but at this point, the Electric Committee and Board of Public Affairs both felt that it would be wise to update all of council on the, this is a pretty significant development for this project. So they thought it was wise to give council the update on that. That's the abbreviated version. So I guess with that, I'll take any questions that anybody has. If not, no actions needed right now. We'll keep discussing this in Board of Public Affairs and an Electric Committee, and then at a later date have a more, you know, solidified proposal to present to council. Is that fair enough?
So who's gonna run these facilities for us, Joe?
Good question. We're gonna continue to run.
They're gonna pay us?
They are gonna pay us, yes. That's how this works.
Okay.
So it sounds too good to be true, right? They pay us for the assets, then they pay us to run for them. How do they make, where do
Sure.
they make it up? They make it up, on so the Regional Transmission Organization, or the RTO, that we're in, PJM. Our zone in PJM is the ASSI zone. And all those, since it's considered integrated transmission assets, that cost gets spread out amongst everybody in that zone, which covers most of northern Ohio and a little bit into Pennsylvania.
I'm happy with that question.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 4. Discussion action, conditional use permit for apartment development in the 600 block of Trail Drive. Joel?
Oh, okay. There was a conditional use permit for the new apartment complex on Trail Drive, and that would be the Trailwinds Apartments. They purchased some land next to Frucci's gym, and would like to construct a new apartment complex, matching the ones that they already have. So requesting approval for the conditional use permit. That was reviewed by the planning commission.
Is there a motion? Or discussion first?
Nope.
Motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes?
Lori? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, J5, discussion action, rate and fees for the Napoleon Aquatic Center, directing the law director to draft legislation. Mr. Cotter?
Parks and Recreation Board recommended a new rate schedule for the Napoleon Aquatic Center.
Hey, can you come up to the mic?
Sure.
Please, thank you.
Sorry about that. The Parks and Recreation Board met since August. We were going over the rates and fees that we are proposing for the new aquatic center to open next year. Those rates and fees were in your packet. We recommended those then to the committee. We met tonight, and those got approved. So one of the things that I reported out tonight is we did add a few new fees to the schedule. A child care provider. Oftentimes we get babysitters or child care providers, et cetera, that do come to the pool, and that's a membership then that we would offer for them. The other thing that we did offer as well, or we're proposing to offer, is a 10-visit pass for both children and adults, along with our memberships and daily fees and pool rentals. So we're asking for legislation for what was recommended by the board and the committee.
Okay. Thank you. Anything additional you'd like to add out there? Anybody else have anything additional on this? Okay. Any of you people have anything additional on this?
Nope.
Okay, the screen went blank again.
There it is. It's back.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, again, the motion is to direct the law director to draft legislation. Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, and Tony, item number 6, discussion action corporate membership program for the Napoleon Aquatic Center.
Pardon me, Billy, this would be more of a question for Billy, because this too would be a request to draft legislation, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that both of these items can be rolled into one piece of legislation.
Yeah, that's correct, and it's already been drafted that way on the assumption that council would likely approve both changes, but if council does not approve number 6, we can remove that from the legislation.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Tony?
Okay, so this corporate membership at the Aquatic Center is very similar to what we already offer at the golf course. What we're offering is the ability for companies, big and small, to purchase an annual membership for their workers and families, and it's a discounted rate based on the number and what's listed on the schedule. That company would have to give us documentation of employees, full-time employees, and the number of folks on the membership, and that would get them a season membership for the year. So it's just another way of trying to draw some extra people to the facility.
And these are companies inside Napoleon?
Correct.
Good.
Only companies inside of the home. The thought process is that since it's a property tax, the residents should get a discount because they're paying for it, but also companies have a chance to benefit from it with their employees, should they choose to use this. So, since the property owners in Napoleon are paying for it.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody?
I see this is for the employee and up to 4 additional immediate family members.
Correct.
Like that.
Mhm.
So Huntington wants to, have a family.
Okay, Roxanne, call the, well, hold it. Do I need a motion? Need a motion, right?
I'll motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. J7, discussion action, investment update by Eileen Stanek, CTP from Meter Investment Management.
All right, thank you. I need to share the screen here real quick with the presentation. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Perfect. And can you see the screen?
We can.
Perfect. Okay, I have with me also Andrew Lowry from our office. Andrew is also a public funds advisor who assists in working on the city's portfolio. So Andrew attended the May presentation that we did, so he should, with time, become a familiar face here.
Hello.
How you doing?
We're well.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Again, we are honored to serve as advisor to the city of Napoleon and welcome the opportunity to provide a update insofar as what is happening in the marketplace and as that then relates to the city's investment portfolio and kind of a state of the current portfolio. So we wanted to just start out briefly with looking at the inflation picture, because when we think in terms of what drives interest rates, one of the factors is inflation, and particularly as it relates to how the Fed views inflation. When I say the Fed, I mean the Federal Reserve, who establishes monetary policy in the U.S. So the measure that the Fed looks at is the personal consumption expenditures, and as we can see over time, over the past 10 years, past decade, that level of inflation has for the most part been below 2%. Now the Fed does have a target of 2% that they had established, but as we can see, the actual inflation numbers from their perspective have very rarely hit the target. So in view of the fact that inflation has remained extremely low and the fact that the Fed would like to see inflation become a little more sustained within the U.S. economy, they have tweaked their approach as it applies to monetary policy to basically loosen up how they look at inflation. And so rather than having a hard target of 2%, they have communicated to the marketplace that they will be looking at inflation on an average basis, and they would like to see inflation on an average basis exceed the 2%. However, as we can see, it historically has not, and the market expectations are that it will continue to remain below the 2%. So clearly, in order to feed inflation, one of the things that the Fed can do is, of course, keep interest rates lower for longer. And the Fed has a dual mandate, and the other piece is full employment. And when we look at the employment picture, clearly, as a result of the pandemic, there has been severe employment loss of jobs throughout the country. But many of these jobs have returned because, as we can see on this chart, we had a very significant spike in job loss that was deemed to be temporary layoffs. And we can think in terms of hospitality, leisure, and the like, accounting for a significant portion of that. And certainly as economies have reopened and folks have been able to return to work, we have seen a drop in the number of jobs that have been lost that have been deemed to be on a temporary basis. But we are seeing now a more disturbing trend, which is an increase in job loss that is deemed to be permanent. So clearly, as we are going through what has started out as a healthcare crisis and has moved into an economic slowdown, there is some permanent, long-lasting damage that is occurring as a result of the lockdowns and the new environment that we all have to operate in. So we're clearly concerned, and the Fed is concerned about this trend, and this certainly will be something that we will continue to watch. In conjunction with that outlook for the labor market and the state of where the labor market is, another statistic that we're following is the initial jobless claims. So again, this would be where when folks initially lose their job, whether it's temporary or permanent, and they go and file for unemployment at the unemployment office, that counts as an initial jobless claim. And as one would expect, when we had a significant layoffs early on in March and April, we had a very big spike in the initial jobless claims. But that trend has moved down, and so we are now rather leveled off at a level, though that is certainly much higher than pre-pandemic levels. So we have been seeing on average just under 1 million initial jobless claims per week, and we compare that to pre-pandemic levels of less than 500,000. So while the labor market has improved somewhat, it certainly is a long way from recovery. Another factor that we are seeing as a result of the pandemic is this fast forward movement in transition, rather a structural shift in the way that e-commerce, the volume of e-commerce that is happening in the U.S. And this, of course, is the move towards away from, conducting commerce by going to the brick and mortar versus ordering things online. So this is a trend that we have seen pick up some steam over the past prior 10 years, but as a result of the pandemic, we have seen significant growth. So in essence, the growth in the e-commerce has been 17% above the levels we've had over the past 10 years. So this has been basically fast forwarded, a trend that has started where we're really seeing an impact now. And we believe that this structural shift, of course, will have some implications going forward, particularly as it relates to the retail side of brick and mortar, as well as perhaps then on the commercial real estate side as we move forward. So this all supports really the updated forecast that the Federal Reserve issued at their last meeting in September. This dot plot, each dot represents each member of the Federal Open Market Committee forecast as to where the appropriate level of the overnight rate should be. We currently sit at a range of between 0 and 0.25%. And as we can see, the Fed is forecasting that we will remain at that level through 2023. So to our point of we have a low inflation, the Fed would like inflation to be higher, the labor market has quite a ways to go before it is fully healed, supports the fact that the Fed should remain on hold for an extended period of time, and that we would see the very short-term rates remain low for longer. Of course, once things start to return to normal, the Fed's expectations are that they would be able to return interest rates back to a longer run level, which would be around 2.5%. But we know that the path from 0 to 0.25 back up to normal will take some time. So speaking of interest rates, what we have here is the U.S. Treasury yield curve, which is the base for market rates. So meaning interest rates on certificates of deposit and government agency securities and the like. The orange line is where rates were at February prior to really the full acknowledgement of the pandemic started to take hold. And we clearly had what we call an inverted yield curve on the short end. And certainly the market was anticipating that the Fed would lower that short-term rate, but longer-term rates, of course, were higher. So when we fast forward to where we are here at the end of September, short-term rates, of course, are extremely low. And we know that the Federal Reserve had moved very quickly in going from an overnight rate that was in excess of 1.5% all the way down to this range of 0 to 0.25. They made these rate cuts in March with two surprise actions. First with a 0.50% drop in the rate and then a full 1% drop in that overnight rate. So clearly removing any impediments to the U.S. economy being able to heal once we get past the healthcare crisis. But clearly, as we can see, what we call the shape of the yield curve, i.e. the relationship between short-term interest rates versus longer-term interest rates, is upward sloping. That is considered to be a normal shape. And that is also a positive sign from our standpoint in that the market is anticipating that at some point, yes, we will be able to return to normal. And again, with this shape of the yield curve, it does present some opportunities to continue to invest funds across the maturity spectrum that's permissible for the city. Any questions on that before we jump into the portfolio?
No, go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. So this is the city's portfolio as of the end of September, which would be the last reporting period. And as we can see, we have, the city had cash, and most of that cash was in
Joel,
what
is there any way
is
to make that
referred to
bigger?
as Star Ohio, which is an overnight investment option that is available to public entities. And then the balance of the funds were in securities. So with an overall portfolio of just under 25 million. We look at the securities portion only. Those funds were invested primarily in FDIC insured products. So this would be certificates of deposit and then also U.S. government agency securities. One of the opportunities that we have helped the city, helped Kelly pursue is also utilizing and taking advantage of some of the opportunities that the local banks have provided with the certificates of deposit as well. So bringing them also into the investment mix and therefore supporting the local banks. The weighted average maturity of the portfolio is at a little over 2.5 years. So when we think in terms of the city, what the city is permitted to invest in, from a maximum maturity standpoint, we're limited to 5 years. So this puts us a little over that halfway point, which we think is the right spot to be, considering that the Fed will be on hold for quite some time. And we think it will take a little more time for the market to react and start to move those longer term interest rates up further. So currently the city's portfolio is yielding a 1.21%. And we compare that to the 2-year U.S. Treasury, which is yielding less than 0.20%. So the benefit of having a portfolio with longer maturities has helped to insulate the city from the sharp drop in interest rates that have occurred this year. Looking at the maturity distribution, this is where when we develop our strategy and have conversations with Kelly, the finance director, as it relates to how the portfolio should be structured, what we're looking for is to have the portfolio structured such that we have a little over 30% maturing beyond 3 years. So as we can see here, we have 36% maturing beyond 3 years, and then having the balance mature inside of 3 years with a little more focus on that 1 to 2, 2 to 3 year area. because again, with the Fed on hold, we feel that it's prudent to position the portfolio such that we will have maturities available, funds available as we get past this healthcare crisis, but then balancing that with having locked in some longer-term maturities, which has helped, again, to insulate the city from that drop in yields. So under the city's investment policy, the benchmark is to compare the yield on the portfolio to Star Ohio. Star Ohio, as we had mentioned, is an overnight, like a money market fund that's available only to public entities. And we look at that over a 12-month average period. So as we can see, the yield on Star Ohio rose very quickly last year, 2018-19, as interest rates, short-term interest rates rose very quickly due to the strength of the U.S. economy. But then as the economy softened, and particularly as we entered into the current downturn, the overnight rates have dropped very quickly. So comparing that to the city's investment portfolio, which is the green line, we had steadily climbed, but very much so like the overnight rate, the yield on the portfolio has dropped as well. However, over time, the yield on the city's portfolio has exceeded that very short-term rate by 0.41% on average. All right, and then lastly, we've included in the presentation the actual holdings of the city to give you a snapshot, a view of what the city is currently invested in. And again, we can see that it's very diversified from the standpoint of any individual investment, does not make up a significant portion of the investment portfolio. All securities that are marketable securities are held in custody at the city's custody bank, which is PNC. And then additionally, we do have those individual local bank certificates of deposit, which are held at the local bank. So any questions on that?
Questions? Anybody? Council, Mayor?
Eileen, if you say rates are gonna stay low as investments come due, is your thought to keep putting them out to 5 years or to keep them short?
Our thoughts, that's a good question. And our thoughts are we want to maintain this longer, this over 30% longer term. So clearly, as we have maturities, we would look to, at this stage, keep them a little shorter term. So in that 1 to 2, 2 to 3 year area. As we can see, based on where, what we have maturing within a year currently, we will have limited reinvestment opportunities at this stage, which was very purposeful, considering that rates are where they are today.
How many of the investments are callable?
Oh.
Rough percent, if you know. I'm sorry, I'm kind of sharpshooting. I'm not trying to sharpshoot you, but do you have an idea?
Okay. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
But that's a very good question, and I will say that is one shift that we did make from the investment standpoint in 2019, and of course coming into 2020, which was as we were reinvesting funds to reinvest them in non-callables.
Okay.
So clearly, when we look at 81% of the portfolio is in, CDs, certificates of deposit, the majority of those are non-callable. I mean, there are a few in there, here and there, but very few of them. So therefore, the callable exposure that the city has is very low. And again, callables come into play, just to kind of explain them. The issuer of a security has an option to redeem a security prior to maturity. So no different than you and I, if we decide to refinance our mortgage, when rates are low, we we go out and we undertake a new mortgage and our existing mortgage is paid off. So the issuers of the securities on what is called a callable security have that option as well. So as rates have dropped and our rates are low, we clearly would not want to have a significant portion of the city's portfolio in those types of securities, which would expose the city to increased reinvestment risk.
I had a chance to read it real quick. There's about 10 of those securities in total that are callable.
Thank you, Andrew.
Most of those being the agencies.
Thank you, Andrew.
Anything else? Okay, Eileen, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it again, and look forward to providing an update next year.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Not sooner. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to item.
So 1.2% interest is about $300,000 on a portfolio that's just shy of $25 million. This gives you an idea of small percentage.
Yeah, there's just not much interest at all.
No,
Anywhere.
and because we're a government entity, we're quicker to find what we can invest in. So we gotta stay in the sandbox to play in, so.
There was a lot of our investments that had callable, and not everything got called that was able to be called during this downturn.
Yep.
Anything else, Kelly, on that?
So let me go back to the,
Kelly, are you out in the rain?
no,
No, that wasn't me.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that was. I was just gonna say, most of our callable investments got called during this downturn from prior investments. So as Joel and I were doing the 2020 budget, there was a lot of items that could be called, and I forwarded a lot to council, but then I stopped because most everything that was able to be called was called.
It's called, yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm assuming I'm ready to move on?
Sorry, thank you.
Well, that's okay. J8, discussion action, MSG investments, CRA application, direct the law director to draft legislation. Joel?
Thank you. This is a request, this request came in for a CRA agreement between MSG Group and the city of Napoleon. This is, again, this is the apartment complex off of the Trailwind Apartments addition that we talked about earlier. The approval of the conditional use permit, so they requested for, the CRA. It's the same as council approved the last time they built an apartment complex near that same location, which was 50% tax abatement for 10 years, property tax abatement. So requesting the same thing, and if council approves, then would be ability to council to direct ability to draft the legislation.
Okay. Motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roxanne, call the roll?
Dan,
Yes?
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, J9, discussion action supplemental number 6, direct the law director to draft legislation, and I'm not real sure what that is.
That's Kelly.
Kelly?
Thank you. This is to supplement the third allocation from the CARES Act. We received another $295,745.35 after we approved the third quarter adjustments. So that is to supplement that into Fund 250 so that we can start spending it now.
Okay. Questions, comments? Motion?
So move.
Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay. J10, discussion action, CARES Act purchases and reimbursement. Direct the law director to draft legislation. I'm assuming that's also Kelly?
Yes, thank you. We have a total of $601,740.92. We'll be presenting to the Finance and Budget Committee next Monday of items that we want to purchase and the personnel reimbursements. So there's a variety of legislation that we're working with Billy on to be able to make those purchases and reimburse the personnel for the CARES Act funding.
Okay, motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, J11, discussion action, American Road TIF. Again, direct the law director to draft legislation. Joel?
Yes, I don't know if you want me to get into this now, or if you want to wait till the legislation's drafted.
Bring the legislation.
Okay. Is that fair?
Okay, so,
I'll make the
Just
motion.
I'll just say in brief, we had talked about this in the budget time. And this is to, create a revenue for us to continue the project in front of the pet vet to where American Road ends to the west, and then south to where Oakwood and Freedom connect. So this is a economic development funding tool to help communities beef up infrastructure around areas that are primed for redevelopment or regular, greenfield development. So, got a little combination of things going on. Now's the time to do it. And if we're going to do something, it does need to be passed by the end of the year. So I won't be at the next Finance and Budget Committee meeting because I'll be at the Liberty Center School District meeting. Also this Wednesday, I'll be at the Napoleon School District meeting. So both proposals need both school districts' approval. In case you weren't aware, the Liberty Center School District, part of that district is inside of the city limits and is in the northeast part of the city. So
okay, motion for that to draft legislation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
And discussion action, J12, application for liquor permit transfer from, is it Graw? Grewal Brothers Corp., doing business as TA Napoleon Travel Center to Shannon Santok Venture Incorporated, doing business as Fuel King Travel Center.
We
Joel?
don't have to do anything on this if we don't want, right? Just let it lie?
I believe so. Billy, is that correct?
Yeah, silence is acceptance. I would like to hear from Chief Mack if he's on, prior to us, moving on.
Pardon? I think he's on.
Chief Mack?
I've got no objection.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't, we're okay?
That's correct. No action needed.
Okay, thank you, Billy.
Yep.
And I believe it's around the table, right? We'll go around the table. We're doing a little different tonight. We're start with Joel.
I have nothing.
Whoa. Billy?
Nothing for me. Happy Halloween. Stay safe.
Okay. Kelly?
Thank you. Just want to update council that we'll have the budget packets available for your review on November 4th at 12 o'clock. And a reminder that the budget meetings are Friday, November 6th and Saturday, November 7th in the AM. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And then we'll start over here with Ken and work around this way this time. Ken?
Okay. Nice job on Graceway. I drove down there the other day. No washboard effect like you get on Washington Street. The finish date for Glenwood is gonna be done by election time.
We're hoping by the end of next week.
The election workers were a little worried about that.
Yeah, and that's, weather plays a role, as you know, in some of that, so.
Can I interrupt a minute? Should we inform the election board of our plans? Or tentative plans? Is
Yes, we will do that.
that okay, Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a nice tribute on the radio this morning by the mayor to Mr. N. Thank you. And on Sheffield, on 424, about 100 feet east of Sheffield intersection, there's a manhole cover that collar's breaking up really bad on it. It,
I know which one you're talking about.
yeah, needs to have something done in a hurry.
Isn't that part of the sewer job that's coming up on that road?
I'm not sure that gravel touches that manhole.
Okay.
I'll have to check, I don't know,
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ken.
we can certainly look at adding that in though, just repair that collar, and if there's any leaks or anything, maybe it's that part of the manhole to be replaced.
Ross?
I noticed one of the banners going over the bridge for the Girls State Championship had blown off. Do we have that?
It's back up.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Okay. Molly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say nice job on the groundbreaking for the aquatic center, and Jason and Tony, you guys really had some nice speeches, and it was a great event.
Yeah, it was a good
It
picture
was.
in the signal.
Jeff?
Mine's for Clayton. Had we ever had a final decision on the fire on Lombard Street or Leonard Street? Or, I guess Lombard.
On Lombard Street.
Yes, I've had numerous residents ask me.
The State Fire Marshal's office has left that as undetermined.
Okay.
But, sometimes in these types of cases, they'll have the homeowners insurance companies or different insurance companies that may take a greater look at other things. So not sure, they usually don't reach back out to me and let me know if that is or is not happening. But at least what I know from talking to the investigator, it became undetermined.
Okay.
So they weren't able to point directly to something that caused that fire.
Good enough, thank you.
Yep.
And we have people in the city of Napoleon that do not like to take their garbage and recycling cans in for days upon days upon days at a time. And some of these are out over the weekends and into the next week until they're putting garbage in. I don't know if there's anything that can be said, or we let Kevin,
Take a look at the code.
yes?
Yeah, I believe that there is a time limit on when I should say that I think in the code it has a time limit when you can set your garbage out.
Right.
I believe that's 24 hours. I'm not sure about leaving the cans out though. Take a
Yeah.
look at it.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Any area specifically that is getting it more or less that we can kind of do a little.
It's Thursday's routes.
Thursdays, okay.
Yes, sir. And that's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Lori?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Mayor?
Was on a call last week with Lieutenant Governor John Husted, it was myself and about 9 other mayors. The main topic was the use of CARES Act dollars and how do we use those. Lieutenant Governor is convinced after the federal election, another stimulus package will get passed. The dollars that right now we got to spend by December 28th, he's expecting a postponement on that date into 2021. So we could see that into 2021. And I was emailing back and forth with the mayor of Galleon about this. Tom O'Leary talked about this, and he's the mayor of Galion, but it's amazing to me, 6 months plus into virtual, remote calls, that people still do not understand how to mute your phone. There was somebody on that call that was traveling and was asked 3 or 4 times, can you please mute your phone? They never said who they were, and they could have, because their phone was on basically the entire meeting. I agree with Councilwoman Nepley about the aquatic ceremony, the aquatic center groundbreaking. I thought it was really nice. Compliments to Amanda and Tony for your crew and everybody out there. They did a really nice job. Want to have 4, there's 5 members of the Preservation Commission. I have 4 slots filled. Would like to have Chris Pepper be on for 5, Marv Barlow on for 3, Gabe Pollock on for, Marv Barlow on for 4, Gabe Pollock on for 3, Kevin Milius on for 2, and I'm seeking a lady or woman to replace Mrs. Mary Weshy. She is no longer going to serve, and she did ask that I replace her with a female citizen, a woman, so that's what I'm seeking right now. I have a feeler or 2 out. Nothing concrete on that. So that's what I'd like to do. So we could confirm those appointments.
Want a motion to accept those?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll on that motion?
Dan,
Yes?
Lori.
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, so done, sir?
And then executive session for compensation of personnel.
Okay, thank you. Only, it's the 1 2-part thing I have here. Safety and Human Resources, anything for this month, Joel?
No.
And Chief, last year, or prior to last year, we were doing, with the townships, we were doing a Safety and Human Resources meeting in February, then again in November, then again in February. And last year, on Kelly's recommendation, we just went with the February. How do you want to do that this year?
That would be my recommendation too, if we could just stay with just the February one. I think it worked out kind of nice, because there really wasn't any concrete numbers that we could come through in the November one. So it was a lot of, communication that really just takes up a night, so I do think the February one would be good. Just stick with that one, if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Kelly, are you okay with that?
Yes, because that way we have the actual numbers instead of more projections.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep, you're welcome.
And that's all I have. So do I have a motion to go into executive session for compensation of personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll?
Dan,
Yes?
Lori. Yes. Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Okay, we will now go into executive session.
Okay.
Joel? Ready? Okay, motion to come out of executive session for, do I need a motion?
Yeah.
For compensation of personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll?
Dan,
Yes?
Lori. Yes. Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
No action taken on that issue. Move on to item L, approval of payment and bills and financial reports. In the absence of any objections or corrections, the payment of bills and finance reports shall stand approved.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Roxanne, call the roll.
Dan,
Yes?
Lori. Yes. Jeff,
Yes.
Molly.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Nice job, Dan.
Did he